on confidence versus courage. So everybody, Natalie, welcome and Washington to the stage. Thank you, Anne. Thank you guys for the warm welcome. What a day. Woo! It does feel like a marathon. Whoever just said that, it totally feels like we're finishing that home stretch. So as you guys kind of sit down and everything, I obviously want to, give you a warm welcome and tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Ambrosia Carey. I've been in the industry for 24 years. I have a salon based out of Portland, Oregon. We're a hybrid salon. And we started Successful Stylist Academy actually during the pandemic, like so many of us who had our rebirthing moments. And it was something that was really wonderful to be able to come up with options and ways to help other people out in our industry, right? But it's also a way that we can pass it on to our employees and our coworkers and our friends in the industry, and just all the different ways that we've been able to grow that. So I want to welcome all you guys here, and I think what I would really love to hear from you guys, I would like to know where kind of everyone is at this point in their business. Who here has their own salon? Okay. And who has staff? Like, do you have other stylists that are either renting or stylists who are W2? Okay. So the reason why I'm asking this is because I think with any great shift that happens in our own world, and the reason why I'm emphasizing own world is because a lot of times it's really easy to live in our own head. It's easy for us to tell the stories that we told ourselves. Somebody was mentioning earlier, imposter syndrome. Sam Villa did an amazing job of demonstrating how the ego can kind of get in the way, which is kind of what's attached to where our confidence comes from. And so the reason why I wanted to define confidence versus courage is because they actually are completely two separate beings, but they're often mistaken for being the same. And I'm going to break that down for you guys. And the reason why is because so much of the time, it's easy for us to focus on what it is that we're doing. And what it is that we're doing, we oftentimes associate it with like who we are as a person. Again, two separate things. And I think we're starting to understand that, right? And so I think as we're looking at other resources, we're looking at the other business models, we're looking at social media, we're looking at other examples of how people run their business, we're starting to connect the pieces. It's not as if we don't know how to market ourselves. Because Successful Stylist Academy is all about helping people with finding a right strategy for their business. It's consulting with others to understand what they can do in order to give themselves ultimate freedom. What does that mean? We need to have an exit strategy. Having an exit strategy doesn't mean that you have to fully retire, but it means that you're passing the torch and you're relinquishing control of the things you know, so that people that are coming into the next place can show up even better than you. My goal is to replace myself. My goal is also to see that somebody can do something better than I have done, because that means that I've done my job. And then that also means that I get to level up. I get to do more. So this is a little bit about myself. I'm just gonna go through this really quickly because I think it's more important that we address that real elephant in the room. And the real elephant in the room is your own limitations. So I'm gonna give you guys a couple examples here. And these are moments in my life that I felt like were courageous moments. See that? Yeah. So whenever I hear the word courage, all I think is of a cowardly lion. Courage, And when I want to say courage is that I'm actually married to a firefighter. And so the reason why I use this analogy is because most people think of courage as running into a burning building, like you have to save people's lives. Courage has nothing to do with any of that, and it's all internal. What courage is being able to push through fear because you know something is right or wrong. That's it. So these courageous moments, this is an example here. It was my first time on stage presenting a model. I was scared out of my mind. I was so scared, as a matter of fact, that I missed the dress code. And some of the models pulled some of their extra clothes together and they thought I fit into them. And this was the first time I did a presentation. I was scared, but again, I didn't make it about me. I made it about the thing that I believed in. And that's what I want you guys to do when you go home after this. That's the most important thing to me, is not what you're taking today, what you're taking with you home. Down here on the bottom, this is when I made that decision. That was on the day that I decided I was gonna open up my salon. Do you guys remember how scared you were? Like, what have I done? Why do they do this? Not everyone goes through that, but sometimes you have moments like, was this a good idea? I don't know. Up to the right is when I did my very first photo shoot. That was my biggest paid gig, and I was so nervous, but I was also like, this is something that I've been working so hard to get to. So why am I not gonna celebrate the moment that I worked so hard to get to? And that's what we do. It's a vicious cycle. We work so hard to get somewhere, and then as soon as we get there, then we're afraid of the thing that we've worked so hard for. This is the scariest moment of my life, up to the right-hand side. I say this little gem for last. This is my son. I had him at the age of 19, so I was totally that teen mom. And a lot of people in not just the industry, but a lot of people around me were like, oh gosh, that poor thing.
Wow.
And my family, even my family, they were like, are you okay? Are you gonna have him? That was a question that was up for debate. It's like, I have 2 hands, 2 feet, and I have a heart and a brain. Like, I think I'm gonna be okay. We can do this. But there was a lot of naysaying, there was a lot of doubt. And beyond that doubt, I think dipping into that courageous part of you is the part that's gonna get you out of it. Confidence is something separate, so let's talk about that. Confidence, I wanted to put these together in little bullets for you guys to just like, you can write down the things that speak to you, take images of it, whatever you need from it. But I think it's important to understand that confidence is believing in yourself, and that is a big bite. Believing in yourself, like, what does that even mean? Like, we have moments that we believe in ourselves, but there's moments that we don't. And I think it's really important to be transparent about that, because that's what brings people together. It's not this whole, oh, I have everything figured out and I'm good, and I'm gonna show you how to do everything. Like, that doesn't invite people in. The state of being clear-headed. Like, do you ever try to solve a problem when your brain can't even be there? Like, your body's there, but your brain's not there? So I think it's really good to think about the possibility that if you're trying to solve a problem and your head is not in the right space, it might not be the time to solve that problem. Kind of like what Sam was talking about earlier, like, let it sleep, write it in your journal, think about it before you say it. Because a lot of times when you sleep on it, and this actually I learned from my husband, is like, let's not solve the problem right here and now at 3 a.m. Let's sleep on it, and maybe we're gonna feel a little differently tomorrow. Because relationships are transferable no matter what it is that you do, no matter how long you've been in this business, no matter how you run your business, it all has to come back to you, what your intention is. And so intention has to come from the past experiences. Our past experiences, if we go back to things that traumatize us, things that hurt us, things that build up that fear, if we focus so heavily on that, we're not able to find where confidence is, right? And so then we just never really get there. One of the biggest things that people say to me that I work with, and I work with a lot of small businesses, not just in this industry, but mostly in this industry, is I just don't feel super confident. And so that's, again, a big bite spoil. So like, where does that confidence come from? Once you understand these past experiences and you think about that process, it's a little bit easier for you to work through that. And then off to the bottom here, preparing yourself. Sometimes we want to have all the answers all at once and like 5 seconds ago. And sometimes that preparation takes a little time. So the more you can feel prepared for something, the more you will feel confident. You probably have heard before that like practice makes permanent, practice makes perfect, whatever that word that you're going to insert there, right? But practicing, and part of practicing is preparing yourself. And optimistic point of view really does help. We were talking before about social media, and there was an example that a woman was like, you know, I'm putting myself out there and I feel like I'm getting negative feedback, right? So, okay, that person is projecting their experience onto that person. It has nothing to do with the person who put that out there. But oftentimes we think it about ourselves because we're already vulnerable to begin with. And as soon as you put yourself out there against your vulnerabilities, then it can feel really scary if you don't get the result out of it. And so, in final thought with confidence, there's always expectation. Expectation is a really hard thing because you have a 50% chance that you're gonna be really let down. So being optimistic will absolutely help you with that. Okay, so this is the definition in Webster's. What does confidence mean? Confidence means, it's basically a feeling of trust or belief. So it could be belief in yourself, belief in something else. Again, big bite to eat. Like, what does that actually mean? So I did do a little bit of research because I wanted to come up with kind of loosely my own definition of it. And it's really the inner sense of certainty. We were talking about certainty earlier today. So when you feel certain in something, you can feel really confident and grounded in that decision that you made. But anytime you don't feel certain, that's when things kind of get a little wonky, right? That's when you get back in your head again and you go through that vicious cycle. You're like, all right, fine, I give up. I'm not gonna do it. I'll do it tomorrow, and then it never happens, right? So certainty is kind of a heavy thing again. All right, this is the really juicy part. I love this. I was really nerding out on this for you guys. So this is where confidence lives in our actual brain. It's in the prefrontal cortex. What does that actually mean? That is where all of our consequences of actions and our decision making come from. But the biggest part of it is it's tied to our emotions. Making decisions emotionally can be a good thing, but it can be a really bad thing too. So think about that whenever you're starting to feel really emotional about something and you don't know the answer to something. That's okay. Write it down, put it in the back of your mind, but understand that those emotions might just be what's happening at the moment, and it's actually not what's real. And that's the reason why I think putting so much effort in the word confidence, putting so much weight on the word confidence can really get us in trouble. It's also the thing that restricts us and keeps us from moving forward, leveling up, reducing that overwhelm, finding imposter syndrome in their life. So now we're going to talk about courage. Courage is something that I really want to emphasize because I think it's one of those things that it just makes it easier to swallow. It's an easier pill, right? Because it's instinctual. You don't have to ask yourself, am I capable of this? Am I worthy of this? Is this something that I'm ready for? Courage is something that you just know, which is it's right or wrong, yes or no. Makes it easier for you to make that decision. It's also something that comes from our heart. So remember before I was talking about this, all the stuff that was happening in the prefrontal cortex, that's all stuff that's getting in our way because we're so in our head. Do you guys ever have a great idea and then you can logic yourself all the way right on out of it? It's a lie. We can come up with really great ideas. We're creatives, come on. But in this situation, courage is coming from your heart. It's just like your gut, like I know this is where I need to be. And I just recently started learning about this, that we have our head emotion, we have our heart emotion, we have our gut emotion. And so we start listening to intelligence throughout our bodies, it makes it easier to make a decision. And it makes it easier for us to move forward with the things we want. You're calling upon what you want, and then you know what you need to do to get to what you need. It's also a way for you to be able to withstand your fear or difficulty. The thing about it is that fear is going to be there whether you want it or not. Whether you pay attention to it or not, whether you escape it or you face it, fear will always be there. But with courage, what's nice about it is that you get to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable is not like, I'm going to share all my deepest, darkest secrets, everyone. It's the ability to be able to point your finger at it and say, I see you, thank you, and then you can move on. It just makes it less of an intimidation. We're not feeding the beast. The last part of it is we can really dive into the clarity of our values, like our core values. We've been spending a lot of time on that throughout the day. We've been talking about that. With clarity, you get answers, but you also start to feel courageous to do the things that you wanted to do, the fears that you were really pushing away from, now you actually get to step through it. So again, Webster's Dictionary, what does courage mean? It's the ability to do something that frightens one. And what I love about that is that the word fear is literally the definition. It's not trying to pretend to be something else. Courage is literally letting you look at your fear, push through it, come up with answers, and be the better version of yourself always. Just moving forward. Okay, this is where courage is. Remember I was telling you that they're both very different. They're in a completely different part of our brain. So courage is in the amygdala, which is associated with the brain's reward system. It's more here. So that's your fight, flight, freeze. That is your innate, distinct reaction to things. You can feel it like something's wrong. I need to do this. I need to stand up for this. You just know it in your heart and your soul and your core values. And that's the reason why courage is so much of a better place to not just make decisions, but to lead and to be our better selves. That's where you can release the things of your past, kind of like what Sam was talking about earlier today. Like, don't call upon your past. So understanding where courage is, ability to understand your fears, and to have that fight, flight, freeze reaction to things where you're like, no, this is instinctual. I don't need to question it anymore. I can just move forward. All right, so in a gist, if I were to compare confidence versus courage, this is what I kind of came up with. Confidence is believing we can, and a belief is, again, heavy, versus doing it despite our fear. So I just want to really emphasize that point today, because remember what we were saying, like, we know the what, and we know kind of how to get there, but the why is why we do what we do. The why is what gets us through the imposter syndrome. The why is what gets us through the hard stuff. The why is what gets us past the burnout. And the why is also what's associated with the courage piece. So every time you're able to go back into that piece, it's easier for you to be able to make a decision, right? So the reason why I'm emphasizing so much on courage, and I think I've already said this, but let me just beat this in one more time, is that it's something else that's more important than our fear. Because for us to really let our fear dictate things, our ego, however we want to say that, however we want to word it, if we're going to pay attention to that, then we don't get to be our best selves. We don't get to be the best leaders we want to be. We don't get to our goals that way. And then we don't really know what it would look like. We're just going to wonder, like, what would that have been like if I actually didn't focus on that anymore, and I started to focus on the bigger thing, the thing that was more important, the thing that was much bigger than our fear. Then your fears get to shrink. So fighting courage is not a lack of fear, but it's the ability to act in spite of it. Do any of you guys have moments where you feel that you're not worthy of something? It could be anything at all. I see nods. I'll take nods. We're past quite raising hands a little bit. I get it, guys. I've been hanging out with you all today, too. All right, so let's break this down as a business owner, because we're all business owners here. And I think this is what the important thing is, too. I don't care how your business goes. The structure of your business. That's not the part that I want to worry about. I think what's important to know is that no matter what our business structure looks like, we're all in business. We're in the people business. We take care of people. We can't have a business if we don't have the people there, right? So, showing initiative. And this goes as leadership. Showing initiative as a salon owner, as a hairstylist, whoever it is that we're serving, we need to show that initiative. That's what we're there for. We want to leave our fears. We want to leave our past. We want to leave everything at the door that is not going to serve that person. Because they're worthy of it. They're spending their time and their money. There are so many salons around the corner. They come to see you. You are the person that they look forward to seeing. So we want to make sure that we're showing that initiative. The other thing we can do is we want to demonstrate support. So support can be for your support staff, your team, people that are around you, people that look up to you. When you have exhausted where you are today, do we not agree that we need to acquire some more skills so that we can go up to the next rung on that ladder? And by doing that, we need to demonstrate that support to others. They will do it back in return for us. Then your arms the expansion of your arms can be as wide as possible. It's also important to understand when it's time to stand up, but it's also important to know when to stand down. Leadership is not about telling people what to do. It's about helping them arrive to what the best of their abilities are. So it lets them see in themselves what they're capable of doing. That also means passing the torch, letting them have the mic for a second. So as a leader, do we not want to have amazing, awesome relationships around us? There are even questions earlier today. Somebody was asking, like, how do you get rid of that toxic person? How do you get rid of that cancer? So by letting others lead and direct, that cancer finds its way right on out of there. It just doesn't belong. And luckily, sometimes you don't have to fire it. It fires itself. Because like attract likes. And when this starts to happen, it just grows. And it grows expansively beyond you. That's a reason why I find it so important to pass this message on to as many people that are ready for that. You might not be ready for that piece, but there's always a point of growth that we're ready for. So try more, trust more, tell more. There's not a right or wrong in this industry. But if we're going to shame other people or tell them where they need to be when they're not ready for it, or tell them that they're doing something wrong, that's not our place. And we don't want to be that. Everyone is in this room today. I think we all know that. And that's why we're here. But when it comes to courage, bringing it back to that, by letting people around you, your support staff, your team, your friends, your colleagues, whoever reaches out to you, by passing the torch to them, that's showing them that you trust them. If you restrict them, what good is that? How do you get to grow? See it as a way that you can grow too. Some people I talk to, they tell me, I'm afraid to have a stylist take some of my clients. I'm afraid to, that they're gonna not support my business the way that I would like. I'm afraid that they're gonna do things the way that I don't wanna do it. Even like bringing an assistant, I'm afraid that they're not gonna blow dry the way I would like. That's so awesome. What an amazing opportunity that you get to help somebody grow and they get to support your business. The next step is that people are afraid that stylist might leave me. That stylist might become my competition down the road. This is such a big pie. There's so much to go around. And as you guys have heard it, being in the industry as long as I have, we do have to move and shift. There's so many different modalities within our craft and what we do. Remember earlier we were talking about this, where we learn so much through our clients, right? And as we level up, our clients level up. I was recently listening to a talk with Michelle Obama. It was really good. If you guys haven't seen it with Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
Oh, so good, right?
It was.
And my favorite thing is Michelle just like she stripped everything down and she was so raw. And she was so honest. And the thing that she was saying is that it's a steep climb and not everyone has enough oxygen to come with you. And it's so true. Like we do have to shed cycles of our life. We have to shed people in our life, and it's okay to do that because not everyone gets to take you with, or not everyone can come with you on that journey. Same goes with your clients. Same goes with support staff. As you level up, you can't take everyone with you. And that's good. That's really good because that means that, remember earlier, I'm sorry, I don't remember who said it, but they were saying you can lose one client but you're going to gain 2 or 3 more. Mm-hmm. Movement. All right. And the last one, I think, this is a hard one for me personally, and I think it's probably going to be a hard one for you guys too, because taking responsibility, I think it's something that's really easy to say, but taking the accountability, being responsible for those things that you say and doing what you say you're going to do, being responsible is going to be the hardest thing as a leader, because when I'm talking to salon owners and they're complaining to me that so-and-so is not sweeping up the floor, so-and-so is leaving early, so-and-so is saying this about someone else, this, that. What are you doing? Are you sweeping up the floor? Are you showing up? How are you leading your team? Because after all, you picked them. You're in this relationship together. So taking responsibility takes courage. I can't get out of here without a flywheel, you guys. I gotta do I love a good flywheel. Thank you. Okay. So if we're going to take this whole journey together, I want you guys to think about some things that you could do that you might already be doing, but some days we have good days and bad days, right? So this is a really great reminder. But the reason why it's a cycle like this is because you need one in order to adapt and change and grow with the other. Part of being courageous in your business is learning when to let go. Trusting others to lead, I already said that part, right? Deconstructing is being able to shed and build and shed and build. So success is not always lateral. And we've decided that, right? Because we could be the highest performer in our business, but someday our body will break down. Someday our hands will get tired. Someday we'll have plantar fasciitis in our foot or something. something goes wrong, right? And so in order to be able to pass the torch to somebody else, we need to be able to grow in other ways. And sometimes it's not always up, sometimes it's out. And then pursuing the unfamiliarity. That can be really scary, but it takes courage. And so that's why I'm asking you to do that. If you're not familiar with AI, it's time to learn. Because as the world develops and changes and processes, your clients will also do the same. If your clients are not growing and you're not growing and you guys are in one non-growing bubble, then it's harder to raise those prices. It's harder to grow as a business. So what you do will attract what's right for you. And then addressing the elephant in the room. Understanding your biggest challenges and don't run away from them. It's easy to post on social media, easy enough at least, but if you're really like having broken systems, or you're not communicating with your clients, you don't have maybe an email funnel, or you don't have a website, or your website needs to be updated, maybe it's time to focus on that. And then changing course, dealing with those errors. So changing course might mean like, this worked really well for me in 2010. Like, okay, we're in a different way of life now. 2010 doesn't apply today. So adapt. One last thing to break down for you guys, and I think it's really important that courage doesn't always work. It's the small things in life. So taking those quiet moments and saying to yourself, I will try again, that has to do with not just being courageous, but also forgiving yourself if you don't make it through the thing that you think you're supposed to do. There's always tomorrow. Taking accountability, be yourself and own it. Be able to say sorry. And also forgive. It's really easy to focus on the things that we're not getting, but forgiveness, that is an art. And as soon as you start doing it, it also helps you be a little bit more vulnerable. And then we want to talk about those daily practices, keeping commitments, engaging in new experience, and listening and being present. My gosh, Sam hit on so many amazing points. I feel like I'm just echoing his words today, but listening. How many of us, like, really, are you really listening? Are you looking at me when I'm talking to you? Am I, like, it's a relationship that we have together. Same thing with your clients. Are you thinking about other things? Are you really being there for them? If you have support staff, are you really giving them the time that you can? Is this a good time to talk? Maybe let's carve out some time tomorrow. Let's sit down so that you can really give yourself and your attention to them. And then unlocking your mindset. Establishing your priorities and goals, and then understanding that like little small things can make some really huge impact. It's not those big monumental stuff, because a lot of times the monumental changes happen from all the little tiny things that you did in the dark. So the last thing that I want to give to you guys, I'm actually part of Set House. You guys will see that later out in the hallway. We recorded, thank you so much to Blonde over here. She opened up her doors to us, and they were there all day yesterday having like the best time recording a whole segment, and it will be available to you guys for free. If you go to website here, immersioncarry.com, just join the newsletter. We won't be spamming you a bunch, but when it's available, we will send that to your way. Cool? All right. I wish I could offer questions to you guys, but I'm going to be around here for the rest of the day. So if anybody has any questions for me or anything that they want to, please come up to me. I'll be here. And I'll pass this back over to Anne. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.